The crisis gripping Iraq has become so dicey that now the United States and longtime foe Iran are considering actually joining forces to contain this. According to reports, these two sides could hold discussions as early as this week, as both have sent teams to Vienna, Austria for another round of talks on Iran's nuclear program. The U.S. and Iran. Is this a good idea? Joining me now from Washington, my colleagues Van Jones and S.E. Cupp, hosts of CNN's Crossfire. Good to see both of you. Let's get right into it, beginning with you, S.E. Just flat out, should the U.S. be talking to Iran about Iraq?
Hell no. Hell no. No, Iran has one singular interest in Iraq, and that is to prop up and continue to prop up a Shiite regime. Now, Iraq has had a Shiite regime for some time now. It's been overtly hostile to Iraq's Sunni population. So if we want Iraq's Sunni population to go running into the arms of Sunni ISIS, then the first thing we should do is bring Iran in to conduct negotiations or to get Iran's help in dealing with this. That will engender absolutely no trust with the Sunni population that we very much want to keep interested in this process and optimistic about the possibilities for Iraq's future.
So a hell no from you, S.E., and I think a lot of Americans would agree with you. Van Jones, do you agree?
Well, I think you can talk to anybody, and there's no harm in talking. I agree with S.E. There's a danger that we actually drive some of the Sunnis further into the arms of extremists. But we do have to take a step back here and recognize we are now living in a multipolar world. As Americans, we're used to being a unipolar. We're the only power that matters. We're now in a different world. George W. Bush started these wars, kicked over a hornet's nest, broke the bank, hurt our military. Now we got to deal with the consequences, and part of the consequences are you got to talk to people like Iran. You got to talk to people like Russia.
So that's a yes. You say yes, given the dangers.
I think it's worth talking. What you do after you talk, that's another question.
Okay, let me take you back. This is because everybody's sort of thinking, well, what could Iraq look like down the road? And actually, to do that, let's go back to 2006, because this plan put forth to end full-scale civil war in Iraq back when the U.S. forces were actually still fighting there. And here's the idea. Take a look. You split Iraq into three sections, roughly comport to what we're seeing now. You have the Kurds in the northeast, the Sunnis in the heartland, Shiites in the south, all bound together in this loose confederation. That's an idea, and Van, it was actually an idea put forth by Senator Joe Biden at the time. Do you see that as plausible? Might we see this resurrected?
Well, I think that's kind of what's beginning to emerge, and I think that the whole world has an interest in trying to keep some kind of confederated state there. But I think the idea that you can just go over there, start a war, throw out the existing leadership, have an election, and everything's going to work out fine, that region has been held together very delicately for decades, if not centuries, and George Bush had a plan to win the war. He didn't have a plan to win the peace, and that's why we got this Humpty Dumpty scenario over there.
Okay. S.E., would you like to respond to your colleague there on the Humpty Dumpty issue? And do you think that the partitioning of Iraq would be smart?
You know, it's something to consider if you're looking at the geopolitics of that region. But let me promise you this. ISIS is not running into Iraq because no one heeded Joe Biden's advice in 2006. ISIS is running into Iraq because there's a power vacuum there. And that's what these groups, ISIS, Jabhat al-Nusra, other al-Qaeda-aligned groups, that's what they do. They exploit power vacuums. If you look at Syria, Mali, after the Tuareg rebellion, that's what they do. And the difference in Iraq is this is a power vacuum that we created. Yes, we went into Iraq. We can litigate whether that was a good idea or not, but we went in and then we left before stability had been completely achieved. So we created a power vacuum, and now we're left to deal with it. Joe Biden also said that Iraq was going to be one of President Obama's greatest successes. It looks like he was happy to accept responsibility and the credit when Iraq was stable. But by the same hand, you have to take the same kind of responsibility for Iraq's instability now.
All right. Well, each of you got the presidential jabs in both ways. We'll call it even. Van Jones, S.E. Cupp will watch you tonight, 6:30 Eastern. Thanks. On Crossfire here on CNN. Did the IRS unfairly target Tea Party groups? Let's talk about that. That's the question some in Congress want answered.